All right, stand by. 10 seconds to
camera,
go.
talent. Ready, camera.
And cue talent.
3, 2, 1.
Record.
Thanks so much for joining us. This is The Rundown. I'm your host, John Phillips. Joining us from Washington, D.C. is PJTV contributor Michelle Fields. Joining me here in Los Angeles is stand-up comic Stephen Cruiser. Today we're going to discuss our picks for the top 3 underreported stories of the year, and we begin with Mr. Cruiser.
My pick for the top underreported story of the year is the erosion of due process rights for American college males. A bill first appeared in California and has now been proposed in New Hampshire. It's called affirmative consent or active, it's got different names in each state. It requires university and college students to obtain verifiable affirmative consent for sexual activity. Students must receive not just explicit consent to sexual activity, but ongoing consent as well. A student accused of sexual assault will be found guilty if a judge can determine it is only slightly more than likely not that the accused committed the assault. The burden of proof now shifts to the accused student. And the reason I say this is underreported, we've talked about it here before, but every time it is reported, it's reported as a good thing. This is like, yay, we're finally doing something about this epidemic that may or may not be an epidemic, but what it really is, it's more of the radical feminist agenda saying that all males are inherently rapists, which is wrong.
Remember in the 80s when the big craze was Satanists doing bad things to kids?
Yes.
And everyone freaked out about
Yes.
it, and you had politicians jumping on the bandwagon and the media reporting on it nonstop.
The heavy metal was giving the satanic messages to the children, yes.
And it turned out to be complete BS and much to do about nothing. That's what this is.
Yeah.
And it's a trap. It's a way to trap young men and get them in trouble and put something on their record and make them unemployable. And it's a way to shift the power from the man to the woman. So now if a rape allegation comes out against you, you're now the one that has to prove your innocence instead of the other way around. And it's another sort of Damocles. It's like the statutory rape laws, where if the parents of the girl don't like the boy and he's 19 and she's 17, well, if you don't get rid of him, then we're going to go ahead and report him to the cops and say he's a rapist and ruin his life.
Yeah.
And it's just a way for parents to have power or one person to have power over the other. It's stupid.
Michelle, because this is always being reported as something positive and good, do you think we're going to see some looming court battles to get rid of this unconstitutional stuff, or do you think that the media narrative that it's a good thing is going to prevail and the continued erosion of the due process rights is going to not ever be stopped?
Well, I think what's going to happen is that this is going to be implemented in a lot of these liberal arts colleges. But I think that what's going to end up happening is it's going to end up leading to a lot of court battles, because it's really unfair that men are just considered guilty until proven innocent. Yes, sexual assault is a very serious issue, and it's happening on a lot of college campuses, but this is not the way to try to combat that situation. If you want to remedy the situation, you need to start teaching both men and women in college to not drink so much, because oftentimes what happens in these sexual assault cases is that both of the people in the situation are completely wasted, they're inebriated, and I think that's the way to stop it, is to stop having these kids binge drink so much.
Exactly.
And you know what? Someone needs to explain what's wrong with no means no.
Yeah, well, because you're talking about personal responsibility, which I think is against the law now, too. But to Michelle's point about the drinking, that is the real campus epidemic. That is the real college problem right now. I was just in my hometown, Tucson, this weekend, big university there, University of Arizona. They spent $200 million building a trolley system from the university to downtown Tucson that basically is there to facilitate the U of A students going downtown to get drunk. That's pretty much the entire reason. There's nothing else to do downtown but go drink, and that's what they're. So they're enablers now. They're not even trying to fight that at all.
All right, Michelle, what do you have for us?
So my pick for top underreported story of the year is President Obama's mission to close Guantanamo Bay Prison. The biggest obstacle the president faces in closing the prison, of course, comes from Republicans. They don't want Gitmo inmates to be held in the U.S., and other countries don't want them either. The Wall Street Journal is reporting, though, that the Obama administration is drafting options to shut down the prison by executive action without congressional approval. And, John, I remember when we were talking about the Bergdahl trade that the president made, you said that you thought that this was was probably a step in the direction of closing Guantanamo Bay. Now we see that this is something that the administration is talking about behind closed doors. Do you think it's going to happen? Do you think that he's going to make this sort of his legacy, that he wants this to be his one thing he does before the end of his term?
I think so, but he's got to wait until after the midterm elections are over. Because if you let one of these bad dudes out and they end up in a video beheading an American, I mean, look at the response that we've seen in this country since the beheading videos have been made public. And it's someone that was let go from Gitmo. That's a huge political problem for the Democrats. Now, clearly, he doesn't care as much about the Democrats in Congress as much about them as they do. And he has not very warm feelings towards Hillary Clinton, so I don't think it would bother him to screw up her chances running for the presidency. But he knows enough to know to wait until after the midterm elections. But I think you'll see it after the midterms.
What disturbs me about this is one of those things that, going back to his first campaign for president, that I don't think he thought about whatsoever. I don't think there was any real consideration put into this. It just was probably something that came up in a campaign speech once that sounded cool, and now it's going to become very dangerous. A very dangerous executive action. I think it was, he had made his name as the anti-war guy, and he was going to just do all the anti-war stuff that he can do. We're going to close Gitmo. And he found out once he had to put his big boy pants on and get security briefings that wasn't so easy, and he wasn't going to be able to do that the first week. And that's what the progressives are most mad at him for. But we're about to get a bunch of really bad guys released into the wild, if you will, because of something stupid he said during a campaign.
All right, now it's time to move on to my pick for the top underreported story of the year. If a rematch of the 2012 presidential election were held today, Mitt Romney would win over President Barack Obama. This, of course, comes from a CNN poll that was conducted in late July. 53% of those polled would have voted for Mitt Romney, with just 44% voting for President Obama. Romney said numerous times that he won't be running for president again, yet has recently given himself a little bit of wiggle room there. And Cruiser, I'll tell you what's important about this. Romney, on almost every important part of his campaign, on all the things that he said that he was vilified for or mocked, he's turned out to be right. He was right about Obamacare. He was right about Russia. He was right about the border.
I will say one thing, because I don't want Romney to run again. It's not difficult to be more correct than President Obama on a lot of things. That's really not a Herculean task, and that's all I will say about that.
Michelle, not only does Romney poll better against President Obama, Romney also is polling better against Hillary Clinton in the all-important state of Iowa, that purple state. He does better than every Republican. The closest one to him is Rand Paul, who loses to Hillary Clinton by 3 points. Romney's the only one that wins. Do you think this is a little bit of the public saying, you know what, we blew that last one?
Yeah, that's absolutely what they're saying, that they blew it. But when elections roll around, I feel as though the American public, they oftentimes vote for the person that they feel like they connect with the most. And if Romney were to run again, I think he's still going to have that problem. Even if he's right about everything, voters like someone that they feel that they can relate to. And a lot of Americans did not feel that with Romney. So I know that we're talking about possibly Romney now running in 2016. And I'd say it again, even if he's right about everything, he's probably not the right candidate specifically because of that. He can be right, but voters don't connect with him.
All right, that's going to do it for today's show. What do you think about our picks for the top 3 underreported stories of the year? We want to know what you think, so be sure to leave your comments in the comments section below. I'm John Phillips for Stephen Cruiser, joining me here in the City of Angels, and Michelle Fields in Washington, D.C. Thanks so much for watching The Rundown.